Hi, it's Ray from IELTS Focus. So in this this short presentation, I want to go through IELTS Speaking Part 3, and I'm going to look at some useful language that you could use, a simple, effective structure, and also some common problems that people tend to have when they're in the speaking exam. So let's have a look. Okay, so I just want to go through some useful language here, a basic structure, and some things to look out for. Now, before I start, I just want to mention I have online speaking sessions. So this is where you can practice a whole mock test, parts 1, 2 and 3 of the IELTS speaking exam. It's a 30-minute one-to-one session, and you'll get detailed feedback with band scores. So it's a full mock practice test under exam conditions. So this will help you go into the exam feeling more confident. I'll leave this link here under the video if you're watching on YouTube, and this goes to the website and shows all the details about that and the pricing and so on. Okay, so moving on now, looking at a general overview here. So the questions you get in speaking part 3 are more general and more broader than you would get in speaking part 1. So it's more like a discussion. You'll be asked about 4 or 5 questions in this section, and the topic is connected to part 2. So whatever topic you get in part 2, for example, if it's about the environment or something, then in part 3 it'll be the same topic. You need to give longer, more developed answers in part 3, so you need to really give your opinion and explain and give an example. So approximately 5 or 6 sentences. There's no rule for this, but generally speaking, it's a longer answer compared to part 1. So it's similar to the essay writing section, where you need to state your idea, your opinion, explain it, and then give an example. So you need a specific structure to help you, a simple structure, which I'll show you in a moment. And there's a pattern to the types of questions you'll get asked. There's about 6 different types of questions, such as giving your opinion, making a prediction, talking about people in society, talking about other people, comparing and contrasting, and also comparing the past and the present, and talking about cause and effect. And again, there's another link here, which I'll leave at the bottom of the video. This goes to my website, and it shows all the vocabulary and the grammar that you need for the types of questions that may come up in the exam. Now, in part 1 of the speaking test, you'll be asked something like, what are you studying right now? So this is about studies, and it's about you, obviously, your experience. Whereas in part 3, the topic of studying would be something like this. It's a much broader question where you have to give your opinion and explain and develop your answer. So it's a much longer answer. In terms of useful language, now some people have no idea what to say, and they might say, I don't know. You should never say, I don't know in the IELTS speaking exam. So if you don't know, you can just say, well, to be honest, I don't really know, but I reckon, and then you can give an opinion about it. So you need to offer some kind of opinion, and you can just say, well, to be honest, I don't know, but, I think, or actually it's not something I've thought about before, but I think, and then give your opinion about the topic. It's not something I've really considered before, but I guess, so someone might ask me, what's the most serious environmental problem in the world right now, for example. Now I could say, well, actually it's not something I really thought about, but I think the problem with microplastics in the sea or in the ocean, or plastic in the ocean, is a real serious threat to the environment. So in this situation, I've just used a bit of language to help me there, rather than just saying I don't know. Now, if you don't understand the question, you can ask the examiner to repeat. So you can say, could you rephrase the question? Or could you say that again? I can't quite get what you mean. Could you repeat that? I didn't catch it. So you can ask the examiner to repeat the question, but don't do it too much. Once or twice would be enough. Any more than that means that you have a problem with your listening and your comprehension, and it could lower your score. Now, to give yourself more thinking time, now a lot of people, including native speakers, use the sound a lot. So, that kind of thing. Now, if you do this in the IELTS exam too much, it will lower your score in fluency. So when you're posed with a tricky question, you'll need a little bit of time to think. So you could say, well, that's a tough question. I reckon, or that's an interesting question. Let me see. Let me think about that for a moment. So you can give yourself a bit of time to think by using language instead of using the sound. Now, obviously, giving your opinion is important, and some people just use the same phrase, like I think. You can vary it by saying, well, as far as I'm concerned, or if you ask me, I think, to be honest, I think, in my view, I reckon, or in my opinion. So try and vary your language when you're giving your opinion. Now, when you're speaking about a topic very generally, you can use phrases such as overall, or I tend to think, or I tend to believe. Generally speaking, by and large. So again, the topic of the environment. Okay, what's the biggest environmental problem at the moment? Well, overall, I'd say that air quality in cities is a serious threat to people's health, and it's a problem in the environment. Or, I tend to believe that air quality is an issue in most cities. You see, so you can use this language when you're giving your opinion. There's that link again about the 6 types of questions. Now, giving examples. So after you give your opinion and you explain, it's a good idea to give an example, and you can begin by saying, for instance, for example, to illustrate, in particular, more specifically, and to name one example. Now, looking at this in more context. So, for example, you might be asked in part 3, this is about jobs and employment. What kind of jobs do young people in your country want to do? Okay, so I haven't really thought about it actually, but generally speaking, I think that most youngsters in my country want to work in social media, in particular as a YouTube influencer or an Instagram celebrity. Okay, now you can see here I'm explaining my opinion, and these words in red are the useful language that I just covered earlier. Here's another one about jobs. This is about the future, so it's making a prediction. So that's a tough question. Let me think about that for a moment. Well, overall, I'd say, and so on, you see? And then here's my example, for instance. And I've got the word will a lot here. I could also use the word likely to, or very likely, or unlikely, because it's about the future. It's a prediction. Now, in terms of a structure, you must develop your answer, obviously. So you just state your opinion, explain it, and then give an example. So, for example, the topic of technology. So we've got various questions that you might be asked in the exam. Let's look at question 3. So do you think artificial intelligence will replace teachers in the future? Now, this is asking my opinion and also a prediction about the future. So I'd give my opinion like this. So, okay, that's a tough question. Let me see. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's unlikely that AI will replace teachers in the classroom because teachers provide useful feedback and they're needed for discipline. Now, of course, I have to explain a bit more. So although technology is developing fast, computers can't understand students' feelings, and furthermore, a human teacher can help each student with exam evaluation and guidance and motivation. So for an example, okay, for instance, Grammarly software can check and it can automatically correct sentences and spelling, but it can't provide adequate help to English students because it doesn't give human feedback. Now this is a very long answer. It doesn't have to be this long, but I'm just showing you a basic structure where I've given my opinion, I've explained it, and I've given an example. But it doesn't have to be that long, so you don't have to worry about these really long answers. But as long as you're explaining and giving an example. Now, in terms of some problems that people have in the speaking section, sometimes people memorize answers. The examiner is actually trained to spot this, so use your own ideas, just speak naturally. Silence is a problem. If you're asked a question you don't know and you just go silent and there's big gaps in your fluency, it'll affect your score. You might get a band 4 in fluency. It can really affect your score. So just keep the talk going, especially in speaking part 2. Just keep talking. Saying I don't know or I don't understand, so I covered this earlier. You can use specific phrasing, like, to be honest, I don't really know. However, I think, you need to give an opinion there. Or if you don't understand, you can just ask the examiner to rephrase the question. Intonation, you need to have good intonation. If your intonation is very flat, or if you're speaking too quietly, or too fast, or too slow, that could affect your pronunciation or fluency score. So work on your pace, nice clear voice, and varied intonation. If there's too many pauses and too many fillers like that kind of thing, that can also lower your score. If you ask the examiner to change the topic, that's not a good idea. They can't change the topic, but you can obviously ask them to repeat the question. Hesitating too much. If you suddenly stop talking, it can lower your score and fluency. Keep it moving, keep going in this talk. Self-correction. Now, a lot of people worry about their grammar and then they stop themselves and they correct their own sentences. That's not a good idea. I wouldn't advise that in the exam. Just focus on fluency. Just focus on answering the question. You can still make mistakes with your grammar and still get a band 7 or more. So try not to worry too much about simple mistakes. Sounding like a robot. This is because people feel very tense and nervous and they think they have to speak very formally. But actually the speaking section of IELTS is informal, so you can just use everyday language. Just relax. Also, not clearly answering the questions or going off topic too much. Just answer the question directly. Try and stay on topic. You can go off topic a little bit, but come back to the main theme, especially in part 2. Okay, so thanks for watching, and check out the website, IELTSfocus.com, and there's Instagram page and a Facebook page here. Thanks a lot.